The beginning of Lake Taupo was 25,000 years ago with the first eruption, and these eruptions continued all the way down until you get down to AD 166, which was the last great eruption of Lake Taupo. The interesting thing is that this map on David Rumsey, printed in 1813, the John Pinkerton map. Looks like he printed this just before he died. 1826. This is the earliest map of New Zealand I've ever seen. And the interesting thing is that the map shows New Zealand as it would have been before the eruption of Lake Taupo. So where John Pinkerton obtained the information for this map, who knows? But quite clearly there is a large mountain range running down the backbone of the North Island. There is no Lake Taupo, and the river runs straight into the Firth of Thames, which is exactly as it would have been. And there is no Manukau Harbour either, which is exactly what the Maoris said about it. That in the days of their fathers, the Manukau Harbour was actually a karri forest. She had 3 streams running through it. And testimony to that is true, is that when the Brits started to settle this area up here, which was completely different to the way it's drawn on this map, like there's a mountain range running right through the Auckland Isthmus, and all this is gone. Anyway, they found lots of karri gum around the Manukau Harbour, and they used to send people out there to dig it up when they are unemployed. And they used the karri gum to make shellac, and probably a few other things as well. So there was definitely a karri forest, just like the Maori said, where there is now Lake Taupo. And the scientists say that this forest disappeared 25,000 years ago, I think, which actually puts it in line with the first eruption of Lake Taupo, which was also 25,000 years ago. So the strange thing is that there is a map of this area of New Zealand as it would have been 25,000 years ago. So where did John Pinkerton get the information from for this map from? He must have copied it off of the Maoris, because in 1813 there was virtually no white people here, and Captain Cook turned up here in 1769, and the first whalers were like turning up around the turn of the century, the 18th century. But they wouldn't have mapped the interior, of course. So they must have copied this from a Maori source. So the Maoris must have had a map of old New Zealand prior to the eruption of Lake Taupo. At least ways I cannot find any other way of explaining how this map exists, and I would think that nobody else will know either. And up here is a big mountain they called Mount Carmel, is it? There's no Hokianga Harbour, there's no Raglan Harbour, there's no Manukau Harbour. So all of these harbours which you see along the west coast must have happened after the eruption or during the eruption of the creation of Lake Taupo. And there is also a large sand spit here which is recorded by the Maoris. People used to live on this sand spit and catch sharks. And they grew taro there, all things. So they must have been immigrants from the islands. It's quite interesting, but you have to have an open mind. All the names have been added on, of course. None of these names existed. But the map seems to be an original footage, an original recording. Probably there is a whole lot of other stuff on here about ancient New Zealand, like Hawke's Bay and all that. The general shape of the island is totally different.